What is going on, guys? Welcome to Bulk to Hulk episode 2, and today we're going to be covering my current weekly training split along with my weekly cardio to give you guys an example of how much you'll need to do to drive fat loss. But it's really important to remember to take everything with a grain of salt, because everybody's body responds differently and everyone's caloric intake and training needs are different. You need to find the routine that works best for your schedule and energy levels, and hopefully this video is going to help you find that. Let's quickly talk about why we should be doing resistance training and cardio to aid us in fat loss. You may ask yourself questions like, why not just do hours of cardio to get into that deficit, or why can't I eat in a deficit and not do any cardio or training? Well, yes, that's true. You could just do cardio or eat in a deficit and you're going to lose weight, but finding that right balance between the three will give you the best results, and here's why. Now, when you resistance train and you're putting on muscle, you're giving your body structure and shape for when you lose fat. In addition to that, the more muscle you have, the less fat you're going to need to lose in order for those muscles to show. And lastly, the more muscle you have, the higher your metabolism becomes, and this increases the amount of calories you burn just by sitting around. Your muscles require energy simply to maintain themselves, so the bigger they get, the more energy they are going to burn. This principle can be seen with many bodybuilders who are eating 3,000 plus calories simply to maintain the amount of muscle that they have already. Secondly, you're going to want to use a moderate amount of cardio to drive your fat loss, since you never truly know how many calories you're consuming, even if you track every little calorie. So using cardio is a way to make sure you're always in a deficit. It also allows you to be more flexible with your diet due to the extra calories being burned, because there's going to be some days where you're going to eat more and some days where you're going to eat less. Lastly, cardio is just really important for our heart health. Our internal health is just as important as how we look on the outside. Using all three methods as a tool for fat loss is a really healthy balance, and this healthy balance is going to reduce the chance that we develop any unhealthy habits that we can adopt that can lead to a negative relationship with your body image, food, or training, and I cannot stress how important this is. Having said that, let's get into my recommended training guidelines for fat loss. Starting off with number 1, you're going to want to aim to train all major muscle groups at least twice a week, mainly with compound movements. And these muscle groups are the chest, shoulders, back, legs, and core. Let's start off with the chest. Now, if you want to train this muscle, you can perform any horizontal press using dumbbells, barbells, machines, or push-ups, and you're going to want to do this at a slight incline or completely flat. You can also supplement this with any fly movement using a machine or dumbbells. Now, for the shoulders, you can train this muscle by doing any vertical press using dumbbells, barbells, or machines at a 90-degree or slightly below from that. Now for the back muscles. Now, the back is a vague term, as our back is made up of many different muscles, including the traps, rhomboids, lats, lower back, scapula, and the rear delts. Now, I get it, this all sounds like a lot, but I'm going to break it down for you. All compound back movements utilize the majority of all back muscles, but they're going to bias more towards a certain part of the back depending on the exercise. But this does not mean you need to train every single part of the back with a separate movement. There really is no necessity to isolate a certain part of the back just because certain influencers have told us to do so. To break it down into more digestible bites, if you want to train your whole back without taking out an anatomy diagram, all you're going to want to do is perform any vertical pull and any horizontal pull, whether that is with your body weight, dumbbells, barbells, or machines, and you can also vary your grips between sets or workouts. Now, the legs are also another muscle group with lots of muscles involved, but we're going to break it down into 3 main groups: quads, hamstrings, and the glutes. For the quads, you can perform any variation of a squat, whether it's with a barbell, goblet squats, a leg press, or a hack squat. If you can't do any of those, you can also perform a box squat, bodyweight squats, or jump squats. And if you're not a fan of squatting, you can also do walking lunges, reverse lunges, jump lunges, or Bulgarian split squats. And feel free to add in any leg extensions as well. Now, the hamstrings are going to be a pretty boring muscle to train, but they are extremely important to train as they make up a large part of the leg and they need to be strengthened in order to reduce injury when performing other leg movements. The hamstring can be trained with any form of deadlift, which includes an RDL, a stiff-legged RDL, a conventional deadlift, and good mornings. And you can also use hamstring curls as well. Circling back to the lower back muscles, all you're going to want to do to train the lower back are hyperextensions, preferably with a smaller weight, and you're going to slowly work your way to a bigger one at a higher rep range of 15 plus. That being said, it's really important to remember that the lower back is going to have a lot of crossover during any deadlift variation or row variation that we mentioned earlier. The last of the three major muscles in the legs are going to be the glutes, and similar to the lower back, it's going to have a lot of crossover with the quad and hamstrings. That being said, the only glute exercise you're going to need is any variation of the hip thrust, whether it's using a barbell, Smith machine, single-legged, or with the machine. Now the last but most important muscle group you're going to want to train is the core. Your core is a vital player in stabilization for all of your compound lifts, and it will majorly reduce any sort of lower back pain you may experience, if that is due to a weak core, which is also most of the time. But the real reason we all want to train core is to get some washboard abs that would even make Baywatch's Zac Efron jealous. There's three major muscles to the core: the upper abs, lower abs, and the obliques. Now the upper abs can be trained with any sort of crunch movement or a sit-up variation, whether that's using a machine or with your body weight. A more neglected group is the lower abs, which is used whenever you move your legs closer to your abs, and they can be trained with leg raises, reverse crunches, or scissor kicks. If you want a more difficult lower ab movements, you can also do hanging leg raises. Now moving on to the obliques, which are responsible for any sort of rotation and anti-rotation. To train this, you're going to want to perform side planks, wind wipers, side crunches, Russian twists, and Pavlov presses. If you want to hit all three parts of the core, you're going to want to perform movements such as starfish crunches, suitcase crunches, planks, dragonflies, and jackknives. There's also many different ab exercises that you're going to want to find online, but make sure they are safe movements and to slowly work up to them to doing the more difficult versions. Now that we've discussed how to train all the muscle groups, you're going to want to use a weekly split in order to hit each of those muscle groups at least twice a week. Some popular splits are the push-pull leg split, full body split, Arnold split, or an upper-lower split. It's important to remember that your personal split can be as wacky as you want it to be, but as long as you're training each muscle group 2 times a week, it's a valid split. If you're using a weekly split that hits each muscle group 2 times a week, you're going to want to do about 4 to 8 sets per session per muscle group. Now, if you're using a weekly split that hits each muscle group 3 times a week like a full body split, I would recommend to lower the amount of sets per session for each muscle group. Now, the rep range is highly dependent on whatever you enjoy training with. My rep range I recommend is anywhere from 6 to 15, and this depends heavily on the movement and muscle group. Smaller muscles should be performed in a higher rep range for the safety and quality of each rep performed, while bigger muscles can be done in a variety of rep ranges. Remember to go at your own pace and progress by small amounts week by week. You don't need to be at the same level as the juiced up bodybuilder that works out for 3+ hours to make progress. Recommendation number 2. Cardio should be done at least 3 times a week. The cardio you choose to do can either be high or low intensity cardio. But keep in mind that the cardio you choose should be challenging your heart rate. For low intensity cardio, your heart rate should be elevated to the point where you should barely be able to hold a conversation. You don't want to be that guy who's cycling for 2+ hours while they twiddle their thumbs refreshing the feed on their phone over and over and they barely broke in a sweat. If you're a beginner or someone who's doing cardio more than 3 times a week, it's preferable to do low joint impact movements such as walking, swimming, the elliptical, stairmaster, battle ropes, cycling. But if you prefer high joint impact cardio such as jogging, sprinting, jump roping, and the majority of sports, by all means go for it, but you're going to want to keep in mind the joint stress you're placing on your knees and ankles and the joint recovery needed between cardio sessions. Remember, joints recover a lot slower than muscles, so you must listen to your body when it's telling your joints to rest or to use a more joint-safe alternative movement. The majority of people are going to want to do a combination of both types of cardio, as that is more fun to mix things up. So if you are, I recommend to have at least 2 days of rest from cardio or perform low joint impact cardio between every high joint impact cardio session. It's also preferable to perform cardio after the resistance training portion of your workout, since you don't want to waste any energy that could be used to perform better for the training part, since we're really using cardio as a tool to burn more calories. You're also going to want to limit your cardio sessions to a max of 1 hour since we don't have a reason to create such a large deficit. The only exception for this is when you're playing a sport since you don't want to limit the time of you having fun and enjoying the sport. Now that we've covered cardio and training, we're going to want to cover a concept called progressive overload. This is a term that's been thrown around everywhere and it's needed to create continuous progress. Progressive overload is the process of increasing the intensity of your training over time, and this can be done in many different ways. For resistance training, you can drive more muscle growth with progressive overload by increasing the weight, reps, or sets week by week. You do not want to increase multiple factors at the same time. Since we're using cardio as a tool to burn calories, it's not really necessary to progressively overload, but we should aim for it. And you can do this by increasing the speed, resistance of the machine, time, distance, incline, or frequency. When looking at my current training split, you can see that I'm not going above 6 sets per muscle group since I personally find the most growth here, and I can increase either weight or volume every session. You may need to do more or fewer sets, but to find the best amount of volume for you, you would need to monitor both the growth in the exercise, joint pain, and energy levels week by week. The goal is to elicit the most amount of growth as long as possible before burning out. For my cardio, I'm slowly increasing the distance for running, the speed or duration of the Stairmaster, or the distance or speed for walking. Training mistake number 1. You do not want to be a cardio bunny. Doing hours of cardio is not going to help you lose fat efficiently, while logically that makes sense. You think that the larger the deficit is, the more fat you're going to lose. But when you create too large of a deficit, you're also going to lose hard-earned muscle, which is the exact opposite of what we want. And to put the cherry on top, you also gain the weight back a lot faster when creating such a large deficit, no matter which way you do that. Training mistake number 2. Overtraining. Now, overtraining is just as worse as being a cardio bunny, but media today glorifies the idea that the harder you train, the greater your results are going to be, which is far from the truth. The media does not glorify how much more important our recovery is than the actual training part. When we're in a state of recovery, in the combination of proper nutrition and sleep, that's when our body creates the most adaptations to the training that we did to become stronger for the next session. This is a principle known as the SRA curve. SRA, or Stimulus, Recovery, and Adaptation. To put this into simpler terms, the higher your stimulus or the harder you train during a session, the more time your body's going to take recovering from the training and the less time it's going to spend to adapt and get stronger from the training. Training mistake number 3, not tracking your workouts. When you walk into the gym and just do whatever, and you come back the next week, oftentimes you forget exactly which exercises you did, and especially the weight, reps, sets, time, etc., etc. And you end up staying in the same spot for weeks without even realizing it. A quick solution for this is as simple as opening your notes app between every exercise and writing down everything you did, or if you want to take it a step further, create a basic program on your notes app using progressive overload examples that I showed earlier. Training mistake number 4, increasing intensity too fast or too much. We've all seen the guy who's benching 135 and he's doing a great job at it, but then something possesses him to jump up to 225 and he gets guillotined by the barbell. While this may be an exaggeration, even 10 to 20 pound jumps in weight depending on the lift from session to session can be too much and too fast for the muscles and joints to adapt to. The biggest sign that you're progressing too fast is joint pain. For example, if you're benching and you increase the weight, reps, or sets too much in the next few sessions, you may get away with it, but sooner or later your elbows, wrists, and shoulder joints will start to feel pain. And along with the joint pain, your bench is going to plateau or not progress much faster. So now you're left with joint pain and a sucky bench, all because you wanted to rush your progress. The results for week 2 are here, and typically there isn't going to be a lot of significant change in the physique just yet, but we could see a little bit more definition in the abs. We are up 0.2 pounds, but this is nothing to stress over as our weight fluctuates daily, and my diet and cardio was not as good as week 1 because of the finals, and on top of that, my peak bulk weight was 147. It's just that my starting cutting weight was 142. So there really is nothing to stress about. Next week, I'm going to do a little bit more cardio, control my diet a little bit more, and we'll be all good. Next week, we're going to be covering the nutrition for a cut and how to eat to maintain muscle and lose fat at the same time. And we're going to go over my measurements for the end of week 3. Thank you all for watching. Please like, subscribe, and share to anyone, and comment down any questions you have below, and I'll be seeing you guys next week.